Good evening, everybody. Thanks for joining us. This is the Aspen City Council regular meeting for March 14th, 2023. That is a call to order. Could we have a roll call for attendance, please?
Councillor Doyle.
Here.
Councillor Howenstein.
Present.
Councillor Mesereau.
Present.
Councillor Richards.
Here.
Mayor Tory.
I'm here. With no scheduled public appearances tonight, we'll go straight into citizens' comments and petitions. This is an opportunity for members of the public to address council on any item not scheduled for public hearing. And we do ask that you limit your comments to about 3 minutes so that everybody has a fair and equal opportunity to speak. And I see a hand up in the back, so we'll start there.
Good evening, Phyllis Bronson. Hi, guys.
Phyllis.
I just want to say thank the goddess that Tory's still mayor. And you're not perfect, but you've been a very
I'm
good
aware
mayor.
of that.
And congratulations to the other two. You're on your way to hell. I've been to a lot of council over many years, and Skippy, I'm sad about you. And we don't always agree in substance or style, but your passion is great. And you really do have the same vision as my old friends like Joe Edwards and Michael Kinsley. And it's important not to lose that. And people complain about we want to go back, all us old timers want to go back, and that's not what we want to do. We want to keep that intrinsic thing alive, the funky vitality that has made Aspen great, and bring it into the future. And Rachel, you're going to be sorely missed. We've been together in politics here for 30 plus years, so great job, well done. And I hope that Tory and John and Ward will lead great consensus building into the future. And so that's all I wanted to say, I think.
Thank you.
Thanks, Phyllis.
Thank you so much. Thanks for
We'll do
being
the
here.
best we can, Phyllis.
You are.
Hello, I'm Patty Kravitz, and
Patty.
I thank you once again for your time. When several Centennial homeowners spoke here on February 28th, several council people acknowledged and responded to our comments, but we were not able to respond back. This is not a place for conversation, we were told. We agree, but we have thus far been thwarted in our attempts to have productive discussions, so here we are. Just a few brief points, mostly in response to Councilperson Richards. Rachel, you asked why, if Sam Brown was able to repair his Centennial rental units, weren't the Centennial owners able to do the same? This is precisely our point. We are nothing like a for-profit developer who has been in charge of everything with his property from the very start. How it was designed, poorly. How it was constructed, poorly. How to at least try to control the owner's HOA until it was too late to go after him for liability, and how to invest in the repairs needed in his units where he collected the maximum allowable rents. Not surprisingly, he was able to finance $4.5 million in repairs to those units, and he was able to more than recoup his investment when he sold his rental development for $50 million without deed restrictions. And Rachel, you also talked about the needs at Hunter Creek and other APSHA properties for upgrades to things like plumbing and electrical systems. As City Council and staff are possibly discussing how to resolve some current issues with APSHA housing stock, let me clarify that the issues we are talking about for the Centennial owners have nothing to do with maintaining and upgrading the property. We are very diligent with our maintenance. For example, we recently updated our plumbing system. We replaced outdated parts and installed shut-off valves for each unit. And we now conduct routine inspections like 4 times a year because we know the plumbing is getting old. Last year, we spent tens of thousands of dollars on tree removal to protect our homes from the dead and diseased trees which threaten our property. Normal maintenance. So if the city council and the city staff want to help homeowners with maintenance expenses for their aging homes, which are becoming less and less affordable, we're all for it. But what we're talking about for Centennial homeowners is a solution to very poorly designed and shoddily constructed housing units, not maintenance. We are not asking for anything unreasonable. We are only asking to be able to have productive conversation and arrive at a real solution. It's frankly a little horrifying that the only way we've been able to get your attention is through legal action, which costs the Centennial homeowners a tremendous amount, while all taxpayers pay a share of the city's legal bills. In the meantime, the costs for the needed repairs has basically tripled, all because there hasn't been a place to have a conversation. Thank you.
Thanks, Patty.
Jim, I need to look at legal right now and kind of ask you a little bit about, there's pending litigation around this. That impedes our ability to have conversations continuing with Centennial. Can you just weigh in on this?
Well, to a degree, clients can always talk to each other. There are limitations as to how that should or and can proceed, but we've had a number of conversations with Centennial representatives over the years. It has not always been, and we recognize it hadn't resolved the lawsuit. We are always willing to sit down and discuss things, but there are ramifications throughout the program that we have to consider. Right now, the litigation will proceed, but litigation can always be resolved. We just have not been able to reach a resolution that would work for them, work for the city, and work for the program as a whole. And we have made offers in manners that we felt would work for them, work for the city, and work for the program as a whole. And we just have not been able to work it out.
If we want to keep those conversations going while litigation is pending, would we be speaking with their attorney directly or their HOA president, or who, because we've got residents that are coming in here and speaking to us, and is there a process for this?
Oh, absolutely, and it's not uncommon. Settlement discussions can occur through litigation, and they often do. And in fact, the litigation was stayed for a long period of time trying to have those discussions. We've had meetings between staff and representatives of Centennial any number of times over the past year while the litigation was stayed. We just have not been able to resolve something that was satisfactory to all parties, and therefore they chose to lift the stay, and then we go toward a litigation direction, but it doesn't mean we can't talk. You cannot talk. It just has to be in a proper format.
Okay, thank you, appreciate that.
Can the gentleman
Ed?
please speak louder when he is commenting or into his microphone? Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Ed Cross, Centennial resident and board member from 1990 to the present time, 51-year resident. On the Centennial question, Patty gave a good rendition of where we're at, and I'm trying to not repeat things. As for Rachel's comments at the last meeting, I would point out that the Centennial Homeowners Association has never, ever made a proposal to demolish the buildings and replace them for $25 million. That is not, categorically not true. Our engineer, August Haas, made a comment at a city council meeting that he would advise demolishment, because of the extent of the mold, and that was back in 2009 or 2010. On our particular problems, a reminder, we were not subsidised, and therefore we would not particularly be precedent-setting going forward in comparison to those properties that were. My friend Jim McPhee is over on Midland at that development, which he told me recently is 6 years older than Centennial. He's been a board member there at different times over the last 30 years, and Jimmy said that, you know, he totally empathises with our problem. Those buildings with normal maintenance are in much better shape than Centennial. I want to relate to you in a factual manner just where I am and why we need to come to some sort of solution. I paid on this particular unit, in 1992, I paid $175,000, give or take a few bucks. It's currently worth double that, approximately at $350,000. Now, mind you, I get 6%, so I'm in a better position than some of the long-term people, even the long-term people. With a 6% cap or the minimum of the consumer price index, whichever is the least, with that $175,000, I am undervalued for what I paid for the property in 1992 in value. Now we come to the situation where I'm a 76-year-old retiree. I would need, if the property is going to be in the realm of $10 million to repair, I've got 1,350 square feet. I'm probably, free market is probably worth $2.5 million, but if I were to, if I could get a loan, I'd need a $175,000 loan, which is basically rebuying it again. And again, I'm a retiree. If we can't add to the value of the unit, it makes no sense to me. I can sell tomorrow and walk away with that gain of $175,000. The new person would be in the same position of having $175,000 needed for repair. And if it's not, the way to resolve this is to find a way to amend the deed restriction. And thank you for your time.
Thanks, Ed.
Hi, my name is Julie Forsay, and I'm a Centennial homeowner for 38 years. This will be a little redundant because Patty mentioned some of the same things, but I wanted to address a topic that Rachel had raised at the last meeting I attended. Centennial homeowners are acutely aware of the inherent issues with older properties. I understand the frustration of having to replace electrical panels and perform plumbing repairs. We have had to install water shut-off valves for each of our units, along with a myriad of other projects that I will not enumerate here. My concern is that the council may have gotten the incorrect impression. We have completed all of these projects with reserve funds, and yes, we do have a reserve. In addition to the normal and expected repairs and upgrades, we have had to maintain failing buildings. Let me repeat, our buildings are failing. It is very easy to lump Centennial in with all the other affordable housing properties. However, I am not aware of any other affordable housing properties whose buildings are failing in a profound way. Since the deed restrictions make it impossible to obtain the loans necessary for the repairs required, the assessment to each homeowner would be in the neighborhood of $100,000 per unit or more. Certainly you can agree that this is just not possible. Eliminating the deed restrictions is not in our best interest. and it's not in your best interest either, but it is the only avenue we have to procure the needed funds. I sure hope we can come up with a solution. I hope we can negotiate in good faith, and I hope that we can agree on the same facts. Thank you.
Thank you. Other members of the public that are in room this evening for public comment? And I'll look online as well. If there's any members of the public online that wish to speak, go ahead and unmute and go ahead and do that. All right, seeing none, I'll bring it back to council table. Thank you for being here once again. I'm sorry that you have to come over and spend your Tuesdays with us, but thank you for being here. We hear you. This will bring us to council members' comments. Council members this evening.
Nothing environmental tonight, but I do want to give a shout out to the America's Downhill that was held here since the last time we had a regular meeting. It was awesome. Got to hang out with a lot of friends I don't get to see normally and made a few new ones. The town was just abuzz with energy, and I am hoping that it returns more frequently.
Thanks, John. Others? Rachel?
Let's go down the line. First, I would like to thank the new council members who will be seated on August 11th, both Sam and Bill. April 11th. It was a tough-fought race all across the board, and my empathy to you, Skippy. It's never easy to put everything you have into something and then not see that it's as well received as you'd hope. But the council goes on, and we'll see a new set of people having to deal with some very difficult issues, whether it's the entrance to Aspen or whether it's the Capital Reserve and repair needs of multiple buildings across the community. I would hope that you're making the same presentation on a regular meeting basis to your county commissioners who contracted for and accepted and approved and developed Centennial, not the city of Aspen. This was a Centennial, was a county project. And it seems that the complaints are just coming to the city as part of, you have the deep pockets. This council definitely asked the county to consider putting something on the ballot for this last election in November so they could deal with multiple issues of housing, whether it's finishing the Phillips Mobile Home Park, whether it's dealing with lawsuits, or whether it's being able to create a real move-to place for seniors who would like to leave their older units and don't really have a decent place to go. So I do hope that you continue to talk to the county as well, who are also named members of the lawsuit. The issue I would like to address is that we negotiated to the very last minute and thought we had a settlement to buy the deed restrictions on the rental units. And Sam Brown pulled out of that at the end so he could sell the entire parcel to someone else for more money. But the deed restrictions are still intact. They don't start expiring for another 21 years until after certain county commissioners passes away. So I hope that the community can continue to work on that, and I believe that our staff and our council is. What I tried to stress at the last meeting, and I'm sorry if the wording caught anyone wrong, but that the problems of Centennial are not as unique to Centennial as you think they are. Hunter Creek was built as incredibly cheap rental housing in the day. Perhaps I shouldn't have used that as an example, but personally, I'm at a point now where my capital reserve payment to Hunter Creek is equal to or greater than the appreciation on an annual basis. And they still need an awful, awful lot of work. What I have talked about is that there needs to be a policy that has both incentives and disincentives, and that it will be precedent-setting across the affordable housing program. There's a lot of, there was no subsidy put in, it was just a conversion project type of things. Hunter Creek, you could say the same thing. There was no subsidy put in. If anything, there was just a lawsuit, and they got the land that Centennial ended up on. I've also pointed out that in a public hearing, in the past, the BOCC received $1 million worth of revenue from selling some of the Centennial lands to the guy with the gate off of the Smuggler Mountain Road. Went right in the general fund. They haven't put it into this problem, and they could have back then in the years ago. I mean, that was 12, 13 years ago when that settlement happened for that piece of land. It was a piece of a lawsuit coming off of Smuggler Mountain Road, and it was Centennial-type property that was subdivided off. So I have, I guess, felt a little pressure that it all comes back to the city as opposed to talking to the people who built and who chose the designer and chose the design, as opposed to just the city of Aspen. It is going to be very important to create a capital reserve incentive program that has both disincentives and incentives, and that residents have skin in the game. And I guess we all will say, how much skin in the game do we have to have? But that's going to have to be what happens. There is work that the Housing Office is considering doing to do a new capital reserve studies and to help fund those studies for everyone to see where all the different HOAs stand. But it's something our community is looking at, a program that started well over 40, if not 50 years ago. And as it matures, you start to see the issues and the complications and assumptions that were made in the past when the program was first started that haven't quite planned out. And one of those is that by capping appreciation on the units, it would stay roughly in the same category of workers who would be able to buy the home in the future. But wages haven't stayed capped. Some years they've been flat. And the cost of repairs certainly have not stayed flat or in line with CPI. And the fundamental problem is having built a home that may cost at the construction level or everything in $300,000 and sell it to people who are income capped at only able to afford something that's $175,000, and yet then expecting them to keep it up to the condition it was originally in and pay for construction that's worth $300,000. So we have a structural, physical deficit within the program of how it was created and what the expectations were on homeowners across the board. That is what I'd like to see reexamined, and I'd like to see a solution that comes forward that works not just for Centennial, but for all the homeowners in different affordable housing projects across the community. That's where I've been, that's where I will continue to be. But I have a lot of empathy. I hear your concerns. I have friends who live in Centennial, maybe former friends, who knows? But I'm here to talk about what the larger picture is that the people at the council table have to deal with, not just individual problems. So thank you for your time and listening to me. And again, I'm sorry if I'm the messenger of bad news, but that's what 30 years worth of thick skin can give you. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Rachel. I just want to make one comment. You know, Rachel is in the last month of her service at this table, but it's not the last month of her working on this issue.
Maybe.
I mean, you know, what her comments just were not about rationalizing or accepting. She is still looking for solutions, still working on them. And I just want to give you credit, because a lot of people will walk away from this table and say, I've done enough and I'm done, but that's not you. And, you know, you are here to engage and to continue working. So I just want to say thank you to you.
Thank you, Tori.
I'll look to this end then for council comments. Ward this evening?
Thank you. Likewise, thank you for Centennial. We've been dealing with this for decades, and it's the fact that we don't always reply to specific issues is not an indication that we don't care and not aware of them. At some point, there might be a full disclosure of what all of the meetings over all the years have been, but I don't think right now is the time for that. I feel on a conservative side that I feel somewhat constrained because of litigation that is pending. But the fact that I'm not responding to specific issues doesn't mean that I don't care and I'm not concerned. So thank you guys for coming. I too enjoyed the World Cup while it was here. It was wonderful, great seeing some old faces, young faces, the stand's full, a lot of energy, and I too look forward to having them revisit Aspen annually. The election is over. I am going to miss Skippy's energy, his compassion, and his commitment, undying commitment to workforce housing. He's been a great voice for the community in those regards and has a vision for the future that may be ahead of its time. He committed to getting that vision out above getting reelected. So I commend Skippy for his service, his energies, and the time commitment that he's had for 4 years. Rachel, 30 years, ditto on all of that. I've been calling you Siri for a few years now because of the institutional knowledge that you have. I think your last meeting at RAFTA, somebody called you Siri, and I took that as a term of endearment. I think when I first started using that, you were put off by it, but it's a term of respect, and the knowledge that you have, the service that you've had for decades.
I got one more meeting, don't worry. Let it go.
So I want to express my gratitude to the two members of this council that will be leaving, and a willingness and look forward to working with Sam and Bill. We have a lot of issues that the community faces, and it takes all of us to work together to try to find solutions. And we'll do the best we can, and we will give it all our energies, and it's a tremendous amount of time and energy that we put into our time for these couple hours, 3 hours, 4 hours, 5 hours.
5 hours, 6 hours.
And so there's a lot going on behind the scenes that the general public isn't aware of. If you take a look at our packet, I think it's 309 pages tonight. Our budget is 756 pages. And then everything in between. So I welcome, or as Mick Ireland used to say, condolences to Sam and Bill because they got elected. But it is a serious commitment, and I thank Tracy for stepping forward and running. I commend Sam and Bill for their commitment and for the electorate for choosing them to represent the community. Finally, I would ask if we could reverse items 9A and 9B. Rachel and I both have to recuse ourselves from 9A, and if we could have that before, have the discussion on the second reading on ordinance 6 before resolution 38. Then we could both leave at that point.
Okay, will do. Very good. Skippy, comments this evening?
Yeah, kind of election reflections, and then a small thing on housing. Not a small thing, quick thing, hopefully. On the election, first and foremost, congrats, Tori. I too am very happy to see you retain your seat. We've gotten a lot done, and you have worked very diligently and very intentionally to keep this group together on behalf of the community. And I know you will continue to do that. And sitting from the sidelines, I will feel better knowing that you are there to do that, because I know how much work we have to do. So thank you. I just want to thank everyone, whoever you voted for. It doesn't matter. Thank you for participating in our community in whatever way that is. Elections are not about candidates. They're about the community. And sometimes we can forget that in our modern politics, but it's true. And, walking here yesterday kind of hit me for the first time, and yeah, it's sad. There's still a lot more I want to do for this community, but I made a choice early on that I was going to run a campaign that was about moving the issues forward first and winning second. And I knew that that meant putting out ideas that would be controversial because they're new, but I felt like it was my opportunity to do so for the community, and I got to do that. And I wouldn't change a thing about the way we ran the campaign. I am so grateful, honored to have the support of people that I have looked up to my entire life in and coming to this town. Living legends, including people at this table. And it's really just meant the world to me to do that. I anticipate being around here for at least 60 more years. I hope I'm wrong, but I don't think the housing problems are going to solve themselves in the next 2 years, so I got plenty more time to work. And I want to congratulate Bill and Sam. You inherit a tremendous opportunity and responsibility, and you both bring tremendous care and intellect to the table. And so I really look forward to what you do with that. And as said to you privately and to each of you, you know, everything that I've learned and experienced, I open source to all of you, to Bill, Sam, in any way that I can, because as a community member, my only hope is that the next group of 5 can be as successful as they can possibly be, and hopefully more so than even with me there. So just thank you to everyone, and thanks for letting me ramble on about it. As far as housing goes, you guys saw this via email, but just for the public, there is a upcoming full-day housing summit on March 22nd, bringing together the entire region as well as experts. It's very much in line with one of the 14 points of our housing strategic plan, which is focusing regionally, and we've already kind of convened this group in the papers today. You'll see a piece about some of that work. The group did reach out via email to me, and I believe later the next day to Diane, about having the city of Aspen be a sponsor of that March 22nd event. Relatively small number versus our housing budget, and I think that that's something that we should consider. So I just wanted to bring that forward and offer my support for it.
What was it?
It's either 5 or
5,000?
10, silver or gold sponsorship.
Personally, I think that in the spirit of thank you. In the spirit of regionalism and supporting affordable housing efforts, we should sponsor at a $5,000 level and take it forward. I do understand it was a little awkward in that they really should take that through management and the mayor first as opposed to an APTRA board rep. But one way or the other, that's not the issue. So I don't know if others agree with that. I would not take it out of council contingency. I'd take it out of the housing development fund. If others support, or
I'm going to let John and Ward weigh in on this before I do. And I'll share my thoughts. John. Go ahead. Ward. John. Ward. John.
Yeah, this council has supported the initiation of this group. We've always been very supportive of workforce housing. I think Garfield County has not contributed. I think they will be participating, which I think is unfortunate, because I think they have an attitude that housing is an Aspen problem. It's a valley-wide problem. It's not only the I-70 corridor and the 82 corridor, but it's important, and we find housing up and down. It gets to a point where why would somebody from Glenwood travel to Aspen to go to a job when they could go to Willits and get the same job responsibilities and the same pay? So it's in our self-interest to do that. And although I don't see equal participation from other agencies and other county commissioners, and I call them out on that as well, but I would support coming out of the 150 fund for a $5,000 level if that is what they're asking.
Yeah, I completely support that. This is even more than a valley-wide issue. It's nationwide. So, yes, I fully support that amount.
Thanks, John. I appreciate my fellow council members and their support of this. I am always one for vetting. I would like this request to have come through a proper channel. We're 8 days away from this event, so I have no idea why they're asked. I just don't know enough information. And, you know, we've had a couple of requests come in for funding for different things recently, and I've said over and over, I just need some questions answered and some vetting. So with council's support, we'll move that forward, but I don't want to see stuff coming through like this.
Sure.
Because it's for the expenditure of funds, could you please have a motion for the dollar amount and fund you wish it to be dispersed from? Thank you.
I would make a motion to approve $5,000 from our housing fund to support the Habitat for Humanity Regional Housing Summit that's happening on March 22nd.
I'll second that motion. And I don't know if we need to specify 150 fund or not. Okay. Okay.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
I will echo Tori's sentiments on this, that it should come through proper channels. It was not handled properly, but the subject matter, I think, is very important. And I would encourage Habitat for Humanity and the housing group to get more in line with what the proper protocols and procedures are.
I agree.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Could we have a roll call vote for the funding $5,000 from 150 fund to the Habitat for Humanity meeting that is happening on the 22nd?
Counselor Doyle,
Yes.
Counselor Howenstein,
Yes.
Counselor Mesereau,
Yes.
Counselor Richards.
Yes.
Mayor Tory.
I'm a no. Thank you.
I'm just thinking about the election and ending streaks of 5-0 votes.
It was not unanimous.
Congratulations.
There goes consensus.
Could have a sign days since last.
Thank you, Skippy. Any further comments?
No, that's it.
All right,
Thank
I
you.
appreciate you, man. Let's see, I have just a few comments and I'll make them quickly. Normally I'd like to tell you other fun things to do tonight. However, this is the most fun you can have tonight being here at our meeting. Tomorrow, however, ACES is having an event. This is about wolf reintroduction into Colorado. It's tomorrow night at the Wheeler Opera House. I think a few tickets are still available, but it sounds like it's kind of a sold-out event. Again, this is about wolf reintroduction, but it's going to be more than that. It's really a community conversation around a lot of other topics, natural and the like. So tomorrow, 6 o'clock at the Wheeler.
Just to add on to that, folks should know that because of our proximity with the wilderness areas and everything like that, our area is considered one of the release zones for the rehabilitation, so.
Yes.
Oh.
Yes, they are coming. Secondly, I wanted to do a quick road update. You know, this is the time of year when we have requests for snow removal, pothole repair, and gravel removal, all at the same time. This is hard to do. This is the blend of like 3 seasons all at once. But I just want everybody to know, and I spoke about this at our last meeting, city staff is on it. We know. Now, if you are out there and you have a concern or something that you want to make the city aware of, the easiest way to do that is 311 Connect. And as a matter of fact, I put some magnets with 311 Connect information on the back table there. But just spread the word. 311 Connect is a way for you to connect with the city. If you have something like a snowplow request or a pothole that you've noticed, please let us know about it. We'll get on it as quickly as we can. But to that, literally, I think it was just yesterday, we had to close down a lane on Main Street. It's that bad. So if you're out there and you're driving, know that they are out there. Potholes are waiting for you. Just be careful. We are doing our best to get on it. But again, especially in these times where we have our own staffing challenges, we're doing the best we can. We are aware of the issues. The last item that I wanted to, and I'm going to do this really briefly, but a little bit of election recap for me as well. The only thing that I really want to talk about is the fact that there was a really negative and divisive element that was that came forward in this last campaign. And to those members of our community, that's not helpful. Everybody in this room that I'm looking at right now, we're here because we work together. We have differences, we have different backgrounds, we have different experience, but we come together to work together for the better of Aspen. And the folks in this last election that were really just harping on negative and divisive for the only purpose of tearing down that community is not okay in here in Aspen, Colorado. That's all I'll say about it today. Thank you. Ward.
Oh.
One more thing.
2 more things. I want to also comment on the potholes, and I had some emails with Jerry Nye, the Streets Department today. And they're 3 full-time employees short. They're doing a great job with the staff they've had. They're running 18-hour shifts. And I made an observation that I thought that the you know, when it's not snowing, they're trying to repair potholes. And when they fill up the pothole, I think dandelions are popping up somewhere else. So I don't know if it's a whack-a-mole with the potholes and dandelions, but show some appreciation for the superhuman efforts that our street department is going through. Although there's some big potholes out there, they're trying. And a final, I should mention this, that Lithuania has had a consulate here in Aspen for 10 years. And this last Sunday, there was a closing party. Skippy and I attended, and some other people from Washington, D.C., Chicago, L.A., all over. And I want to thank, it's the only consulate that Aspen has ever had that's been approved by the State Department. So it's closing of a chapter in our history. That consulate is moving to Fort Lauderdale. So I asked the John Pruskus to make sure he has a big enough home for us to visit in January. But so I thank the John Pruskus and the Lithuanian consulate for 10 years of service here in Aspen.
Thank you for that. That'll bring us on our agenda to well, we did have an amendment. We're gonna move some stuff around a little bit. We're gonna actually pull resolution 37 from consent calendar because Ward has to recuse.
34, I think it
It's
is.
actually 37 now, but we'll talk about that in a moment.
Yeah, it should be noted that that is resolution number 37, the grant funding
Yeah,
recommendations.
it was duplicative. There's another 34. This is 37. But we'll pull that first when we get to that. And that brings us to city manager's comments. Sarah?
Council, I do want to let you know that we have been reaching out to CDOT about the conditions of Main Street Highway 82 through the town continually, and I want to sit down with them again about the current approach to their maintenance of that section of Highway 82 is really not meeting community needs and creating public safety hazards from our perspective. So we will continue to be diligent in trying to advance that conversation as quickly as CDOT can. In the meantime, I just want to share with you, I appreciate your acknowledgement of how hard that team is working right now with the challenges Mother Nature is sending them. So we will report back to you as that goes forward. And then the only other thing is I want to just share my appreciation with the community, the staff, council members who've all participated in components of the police chief recruitment. I am sorting through all of that feedback right now in order to make a selection. And we'll certainly be excited to share information with you and the community as soon as that process is ready for public announcement. Thank you.
Sorry, I forgot one small thing, and I think we all forgot one small thing. I think we should thank Nicole Henning for running the first election as our city clerk smoothly without, well, we are not in this building. Okay, with the new building.
Successful nonetheless.
Anyhow, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Really appreciate it. That's a lot of hard work.
Thank you for that. Board reports this evening.
I can start with that, Tori. We haven't had any new action meetings since the last one, so we will be having an action meeting on Wednesday night, tomorrow of this week. I really just wanted to emphasize the date one more time for the Rubey Water and Power Authority, which is having a watershed summit on May 11th to help determine whether the various projects and wish list items that communities throughout their watershed have prior identified, to what extent are they willing to fund them and how would they like to see them carried forward. If it's through Rubey Water and Power Authority, it will need to be adjustments to budgets or some sort of way to handle that going forward. But that is just an incredibly important meeting for the city to be participating in. Thank you.
Thank you. Board reports?
RAFTA, we had a meeting on the 9th. We had succession planning. We extended the contract for Dan Blankenship through, he's getting close to retirement, through the year 2024. So we have him at least for that length of time. The succession planning is looking really good. RAFT is in a strong position, both, it seems, both internally and financially. We did have a presentation by Gail Schwartz and David Myler for the Housing Summit, and they were talking about 20% down payment assistance, and we'll see more of that. I'm signed up for that at the Aspen Institute the 22nd, I think it is. And I also signed up to be on the strategic planning committee for the strategic retreat that is going to be June 8th. And so we'll just be, I think, setting the agenda and areas for the coming year.
Thank you for doing that. Anything?
No, I don't have any.
Yeah, I actually missed one, and sometimes you forget between meetings. Since our last regular meeting, I did attend the Club 20 policy meetings in Grand Junction for 2 days, and there are 2 items that I think are particularly worth noting there. One that's come forward is that there's been an amendment at the State House legislatively to change potentially the makeup of the Colorado Transportation Commission, which also would affect our transportation planning region. And the regions have always been based on lane miles, but the push from the Front Range is to try to base them on population numbers, not lane miles, which would mean an awful lot less funding on the West Slope into West Slope roads, road needs, maintenance, everything like that. So Club 20 is fighting back on that, I believe. The I-70 Coalition, any number of groups have heard about this. Sarah told me that staff is aware of that and putting in that as well. But that is a real concern about how we would get our funding in the future. The second item I had brought forward, and again, I've already communicated with our manager about, was they had a very detailed presentation by the Colorado River District on all the different funding that is coming down through the various federal acts. And they have felt so serious about it that the River District has hired 2 people to become navigators to help communities figure out how they can get in, what local match is needed, when is the application, how to win that dollars. But between that and other issues, we are clearly seeing an unprecedented amount of federal dollars to help with infrastructure problems. Most people in the community are aware, but in the long term, Aspen needs to build a reservoir for its future water supplies and is in the process through Water Court of moving its water rights off of the Castle and Maroon Creek streams, which prior had been water rights for the city. And the old plans were to build a very large dam and reservoir up either Maroon, areas that are totally unacceptable now. But in terms of the security of a water supply, the city of Aspen only has 3 days worth of water in a reservoir. We depend entirely upon surface flows. And in the changing drought conditions as well as growth perhaps, we will need a more secure water supply. And I do think the type of dollars for potentially planning that and going forward are more available now than they will be in 10 years from now. So this is kind of, one-time money in so many ways at this magnitude. So thank you for letting me put in that last report.
Yep, thank you.
It's not exactly a board report, but it may fall into this just as a PSA. This morning, I was officially appointed by the Senate Finance Committee to the Prop 122 Natural Advisory Board, which is doing all of the regulatory framework and rule setting for first psilocybin and then the rest of it. And part of that role as a group will be making sure that those rules work for all communities, including local communities. And I know we've had both concerns as well as a population that supported it as much as anyone. So just a PSA, over the next year, although I won't be here, I will be there and hope to be a competent conduit of support in whatever way is appropriate.
Great, thank you.
Thank you
for that.
And congrats.
Thanks.
That'll bring us to our consent.
One more thing.
Sorry, I was waiting to go last. May I give a board report, Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
All right, because I was the only Aspen representative at the Colorado Association of Ski Town meetings, I just wanted to give you a quick update of what happened there. There was approximately 70 or so representatives of ski towns at the meeting. Of interest particularly was spending a little bit of time with Governor Polis around housing, namely, and this yet-to-be-revealed housing bill that he and his staff have been working very diligently on. We are going to continue to follow that closely because it does have some preemptive zoning provisions to it that could be concerning to our local communities' views of land use. And so therefore, I continue to represent the Cass communities with the mayor of Breckenridge in discussions across the state municipal organizations. We now have come together with a list of tenets that we think are important in any bill that may be introduced in either chamber of the state government, and are waiting for just the right moment here shortly for that to be delivered to the governor's office to assist them before perhaps they publish anything, as providing some local framework considerations and perspective into what they're working on. The other items at CAST, this particular meeting is heavily focused on legislative agenda, so we spent quite a bit of time with Speaker McCluskey and her views of the upcoming session and her role in it. One of the few times we've been able to have a Western Slope person in that leadership role, so we're very fortunate to have that expertise in the House. And then there is just a lot of catching up for a lot of communities. This has been a really busy winter. So understanding how they're tackling a few different issues that they're facing. So we had a really healthy roundtable. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you for doing that, Sarah. All right.
Now we'll get to our consent calendar. And correct me if there's procedure here, but what I'd like to do is I'd like to pull 37 right away.
It's item 6D on the agenda.
Yeah. Ward can step out.
You can step back
We
through
can
that.
take care of that and vote on it, and then have
Bring
him
him
come
back
back
in.
for the rest of consent
Correct.
calendar.
Knock 3 times and we'll consider.
All right. So this is item 6D that was on our agenda as resolution number 34, but it is truly resolution number 37, series of 2023, Community, Cultural Arts, and Health and Human Service Grant Funding Recommendations. Bless you.
Thank you.
And, I mean, I'd like to pull it for some discussion if John's here or if somebody's here.
Oh, this is here.
You're stuck with me tonight, Anne, as our
Oh, yeah, okay. Oh.
Can never be stuck with
grant
Alyssa.
steering committee
The A-team.
chair.
I hope John's watching at home, taking notes.
Training.
Thank you for coming up and talking. I just wanted to get a little bit of a download. There was a lot of information in our packet, and, this is a program that is just important and near and dear to a lot of people in our community. So I just thought, we should not just pass it, but have some discussion. I see members of the public that may be participants in this process. I don't know that they have any comments. We were hoping that any comments on this issue would have been offered up at citizen comments and petitions. So I'm not really asking for any comments, but we did receive some.
So, for the record, Alyssa Farrell, Administrative Services Director. Patrick Quick, Strategy Innovation Director, is also here. I do have a presentation if you'd like to see it, or I can give you some highlights, whichever you prefer. Great. I just got kicked off, unfortunately.
Just mime it.
Zoom to share my screen. Can you?
Okay.
Sure. While we're waiting, I just wanted to give a
He's right
shout
there. He's
out
doing it.
to John Barker for
He's
his
right outside
work.
the door. Be careful.
Oh, thank you. Safety first.
Yeah.
And Natalie for her work, and especially for Ann Mullins. for her continued dedication. She is our Grant Steering Committee chairperson. I also wanted to give a shout out to Teresa McGovern. She's not here tonight. She's served in many of our volunteer capacities with the city. She has resigned from our Grant Steering Committee, and I just wanted to thank her for her dedication and years of service, along with Judy Clausen, who's our new Grant Steering Committee volunteer member. And I'm sure I'm missing others too, along with our volunteer review committees. Do you want to say anything?
Yeah, I'd love to go through some of the takeaways I have, but probably after your presentation. Ann Mullins, for the record.
I was kicked off Zoom. So do I have to go back on?
Use the opportunity to start when you're ready, it's fine.
Council, while they're working on the technical piece, are there any questions we can get started with?
No, I didn't really have particulars. It was just about, the reason I really wanted to just have some public discussion was because of the formula, the system that we've gone to, and there were things stated in the memo about spreading the funds across the organizations that we had applying for grants. Some saw decreases, et cetera, and I just wanted to address that publicly. So nothing jumped out at me. I mean, I think our process is years ahead of where it's been in the past, and I think it's great, but I do think that there's a little bit of conversation that could happen.
I think that would be a great question for you, put you on the spot, Ann, but as chair, your committee, your steering committee had this very conversation and about balancing that and what you're hearing from reviewers about decisions about, do you fund deep a few organizations or do you fund broad? At a shallower level, a lesser dollar amount to be able to touch more organizations that are making impacts in the community.
Do you want me to go into that now, or do you want to?
I would go ahead and answer that question
okay.
because that's really the basis of what we're hearing the request for the poll was.
Well, that's one of the main takeaways from this process, that we're getting more organizations asking for money and asking for more money. And we have, a limited resource unless council was just keep adding to it every year, but I don't think that's probably best practice. So there's next year, we will have to make some decision, and of course with council's input. How do you approach this? Do you put more money in? Do you limit the groups that are getting the money? Do you reduce the money that's going to the various groups? So there are a couple of big decisions to be made. Previously, everybody, pretty much, you can't say everybody forever, but most people, the majority of people who applied for grants would get a grant. Some percentage, sometimes the full request, sometimes a lesser request. But everybody was pretty assured of getting money. And actually, previously, people just assumed they'd get it. If they got it last year, they'd get it next year, and they'd get it the next year. And that was our equity problem. I think we've done a great job, especially with our consultant.
Point BE.
Point BE. To increase the transparency and the equity and the clarity of these applications. But maybe because of that, in the second year that Aspen is doing this, that there's much more enthusiasm, people understand the process, and we're getting so many more applications and so many more, requesting so much more money. So we need to look at that, but maybe it's looking at scoring. We have an intricate scoring system, but again, you're addressing a group that's asking for $2,000. I always put it, it's a sole employee or sole volunteer that's putting together an application at the library on the computer there versus a group that's requesting $100,000 and has hired a specific grant writer. It's very hard. And actually, our consultant has, and you'll probably go into this, suggested a few ways we can address that issue. It's really complicated. There are also quite a few more community nonprofits than Health and Human Services. The size of our committees everybody's 5 right now. We have the 3 review committees and the 5-person steering committee. Maybe we have to increase the size of the committee that's looking at the community nonprofits, because these volunteers worked really, really hard, but we want it to be within reason. And when they have twice as many applications to review as another group, that's another change. So I hope that begins to address the question.
That's great. And you were just saying, so the consultants that we had retained are still involved. They're seeing the process as it went through this year, and we're going to have follow-up conversations about possible improvements going forward.
Yeah.
Well, they provided recommendations, and it's included in the attachment a few years ago, and then they did an after-action review and met with community key stakeholders along with internal stakeholders after the first round last year of significant changes. So we're still following and implementing their recommendations moving forward. Specifically, and going through this, I do address some of your questions too. You have 10 to 15% increasing the number of applications with larger dollar requests as a whole too. So the process is funding and following our philosophy in the focus areas, the strategic focus areas to fund within the criteria. That includes the focus areas. And it is based on performance of the application and the process while trying to fund as many as possible. So there's a balance to be had. We will be coming to council to go through more of the arts and culture programs that we've talked about in the past in the next couple of months, along with continuing to refine our grants program. We learn every year.
Just a question, again, and it's more for your consideration on, not really a question then, consideration for your process going forward, particularly on the human service side. Is there any way to understand what their request is of the county funds and what their allocation may be? I'm just wondering if someone put in a really large amount for both programs and they got it from both programs, are they getting overfunded in a sense versus, or you're applying extra large here because you think you'll get cut back in that program? Or it's just something to look at how do they play with each other?
Those figures are public, so
Yeah.
you could certainly get from the Healthy Community Fund.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm just wondering in terms of the timing of when these things are allocated, or whether our grant application asks, what are you receiving from other grant organizations?
Oh, okay.
Just kind of how do they play together
Right.
going forward?
So actually, what plays into that, we're working with the county and the Aspen Community Foundation to use the same grant platform between all 3 entities.
Yeah.
Because it makes it a lot easier for our grantees, our applicants to have, that key information every year. They enter it once and it works for all
Yeah.
3 entities. But we're continuing to explore that. We don't know at this point yet whether it will release cross information about awards given or reasons for denial. Or that's really still the exploratory level we're at, is rather about, can this particular piece of software work for all 3 entities?
Yeah, and again, I don't have any firm has to be this or has to be that, but I was just thinking it's worth really kind of looking into, do people apply for more to one program because they think there's more available and less from the other program because they surely get it? But how do they interact?
Well,
that's
and
all.
Rachel, yeah, another thing it came up during our final review with the steering committee was what organizations are getting other city monies. Now, 2020 was unique in that we had the 30,000 for the arts and culture, and then we had inflation grants and that kind of thing. But it was a good point. We should be tracking what other monies they're getting from the city, because not every organization that applied for grants here was able to get those grants.
Yeah, that's all
good
I'm saying,
point.
is that
Yeah.
we need to kind of track how these things move forward over time
Yeah.
together.
Patrick mentioned that he met today with the county, so there are those conversations happening. I wanted to add, per point BE, we have instituted an outcome impact report, so we can follow up and assure accountability, transparency, communication, and that the funding's being spent as requested.
Very good, thank you.
All right, I'll jump into the presentation.
Sure.
And feel free to jump in as well. Yeah. So as a reminder, at a high level, we have the 3 program areas. I also mentioned the 3 volunteer review committees and then the steering committee. We do have cash and in-kind support. This year, we received 107 applications. Again, that number continues to increase. I think it also continues to increase because we're looking at word of mouth along with, continued communication plan and expansion of our communication plan too. Here's our city staff and committee members. Our goal is to continue to have more volunteers on the committee. If you recall, we set up initially the bones, the foundation of the city staff, doing kind of the heavy lift for our volunteers on the steering committee, so we could put the Point BE recommendations in place. And then we're working with Judy Clausen and other volunteer committees to slowly start transitioning on. So we hope to continue that process. Again, a thank you to Anne as our steering committee chair, Teresa for her years of service, and really Judy for joining, and all of our volunteer review committee members. This highlights our application numbers. Again, the total number of applications is about 10 to 15% higher than previous years, depending on the program area. So we're still experiencing continual growth in the funding requests and the number of applications received. And this goes into the funding requests and program budget amounts. Funding requests, your takeaway is funding requests exceed available funding in all program areas, especially the HHS and community nonprofit programs. So again, we're looking to further refine our criteria and utilize our criteria and maintain the integrity of the review committees and their recommendations moving forward. The in-kind program is an area that we will be bringing forward some additional recommendations and tweaks to in the near future as well. Just some refinement, and Lisa Rigsby-Peterson and our directors, along with our steering committee, has been instrumental in Point B with those recommendations. And there's your visual steering committee and then your volunteer review committees. This goes into the Aspen grant life cycle. I think we're, for the most part, familiar with this process at this point. I did want to highlight that we're continuing to expand our trainings offered, so there is that more consistent and transparent in communication continuously with our grant life cycle process for all of our applications and potential applications. As a reminder, here's our grant program philosophy. So this is our overarching philosophy that we went over, was it a couple years ago with council? And I think it still remains really important and useful within our criteria, and this is available on our website as well. So again, that provides that unifying theme and goal for the city's overall grant program, and it really gives applicants a framework to build their application around. Here you have the strategic focus areas for HHS, the arts and culture strategic focus areas, and the community program strategic focus area. This gives applicants clarity on the goals and on the goals of City Council for each program area, and it provides concrete measures for which applicants will be scored and funded. Here's the overarching review criteria with community impact, alignment, innovation, and feasibility. This was revised slightly in 2023. It's now more closely aligned to application questions to improve review and consistency. This is also available on our website for the grants webpage. And this helps staff to communicate expectations with applicants, standardization of the review process, offers consistent and targeted training to all applicants. It's helping us with the training and the tools. And of course, it helps applicants understand the areas and the criteria, submit better applications to target the city goals, and know in advance what we're looking for. So again, program growth continues in request size and new applicants. We do have 2-year funding term, which reduces the availability with the budget for 2023. All applicants are set to receive some funding, so making that recognition again. We have 6 applicants new to the program. The demand nearly doubles program budget. However, all applicants are continued to receive some funding. And here, with influx of arts and culture RET funding, there's more funding for highly performing applications. You have 5 new organizations to the program. 31 of 31 are set to receive funding. And then in kind, you have the ice time. Here's your example of utilization, city staff time, facility rentals. You have your average award recommendation, average request of 11,000, average reward of 9,000. Total funded and total requested, 17 out of 17. That is the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? Any follow-up?
Small comment.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, I just, thanks for presenting this to the public. This is one of the coolest things we get to do. It's something that almost very few councils get to do when we think about what we get to touch as a community, as a council, from our city budget, everything from, food banks to mentorship to performing arts of all kinds to concerts to veterans. It really is, there are very few organizations that you make contact as a citizen that don't get some support from the city. And that's just an amazing thing to get to do. So, and thank you guys so much for really putting structure and objectivity, and not just structure and objectivity, but those aligned to community desires and needs. It's just great. So thanks.
Thanks, Skippy. Rachel?
Yeah, it's a daunting task that we ask these citizen volunteers to do. And, it doesn't feel good to look through 20 applications and cut 20 people back from what they have asked for, all 20, pretty much. But we're not within unlimited funds. And, it's funny for me to look at something like the ARC budget and the ARC in town, which is good, but we're nowhere near our goals for the ARC and the recreation program being self-sustaining for itself. And so programs like that, to really maintain a low rate for people using it, need more general fund money. And so that would compete with general fund money you might want to put in more towards this program. It kind of goes up and down every single department and every single program we have that competes for increased dollars. So it's not as if you can say, oh, okay, let's just raise the amount that's going to these three different categories by 500,000 for next year, because the grant request would come in at 650,000, no matter what we put in terms of extra money in there. There's always going to be some sort of winnowing and cutting back, and the most we can do at the table is really, as we've been in advancing, is clear expectations, after action reports, and knowing what the impact of those grants were. And some will deliver double duty for what you got, and others may not be as performing as well. So I understand it's just a challenge, and organizations go through their ebbs and flows as well, and sometimes you have to help them out during the low times as much as the high times. The one thing I think would be helpful, again, going forward in future, when it comes to the committee or when it comes to the public or comes to council table, would be to have what their funding that they received the prior year was. It's you can see what they requested and you can see what the contribution is, but to know where they allocated the year before, I think is helpful information, because then you can see if it's grown, if it's staying same, if we're having to cut back for some reasons or whatever. But I think that's good information to have. Other than that, I just congratulate you on the hard work and thank you. And you can always look through the list and go, oh, I wish those guys got another 2,000, or they're so good, they deserve 5,000. But we're not looking at them in the whole basket. We're looking at one or two that we may know of a personal relationship with, or have some insight to people who've been served by that group or things like that. So I certainly would not be one to jump in, and everyone did receive some funding. So that's important. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Rachel. I'm not hearing for any amendments, so I would take a motion at this time for resolution number 37.
I'll make a motion to approve number 37 in our consent agenda.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Yep.
You had said you might take comment, you might not. Were you? No.
No.
Aye.
No, we actually, no, we actually had a message that went out to people that said, hey, public comment is available at the beginning of the meeting. This is set for consent
Okay,
calendar.
gotcha
This is
now.
not public
Got-
comment.
gotcha. Okay.
but I did see that some were on, just, I guess they're,
Listening in.
yeah.
They want a yes.
All right, so I have a motion and a second. Can we have a roll call vote, please, for resolution number 37?
Counselor Doyle,
Yes.
Counselor Mesereau,
Yes.
Counselor Richards,
Yes,
Mayor Tory.
I'm a yes.
thank you.
All right, thank
Can I
you
make
guys.
one more,
Thank you.
can I make one closing comment?
And I would like, I'll follow, go ahead.
Okay. First of all, thank you very much, Council, for supporting this. This is an enormous change and a real shift in the way we did things. But I think we've come up with a much, much better process than what was in place previously. There's still a lot of tweaking to do, a lot of work to do. That said, one of the major things is we are trying to transition this steering committee of 5 people from half staff and half private citizen. Well, it's not half, 2.5 people, but but have it be totally private citizen. So my request is, as you always say to the general public, if anyone's interested, if any of you have ideas of people that you think might be good to be on the steering committee, we would very much like to shift it from staff. I think it's very important to a citizen committee. So.
Thank you for that, Ann.
Thank you, Anne. And I'll just leave you with a quote. We have many quotes from our nonprofit organizations this year. One is from Lift Up. We deeply appreciate the grant support provided by the City of Aspen during such challenging times of inflation, supply chain interruption, and increasing need. Lift Up would not have been able to succeed in our mission to alleviate food security without the generous support of grant funding from the City of Aspen. Thank you.
Very good.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Okay, so that'll bring us to the rest of our consent calendar. Our consent calendar this evening is resolution number 28, intergovernmental agreement between the City of Aspen and Roaring Fork Transportation Authority for the Rubey Park overhead electric charger. Resolution number 32, contract for public art plan development. Resolutions 33 and 34 having to do with the asphalt overlay project. Resolution number 35, contract with Glenwood Springs for a lightning. And resolution number 36, contract construction.
For a lightning truck.
For,
Some key words there.
well, yes, but I know somebody's excited about that. He's sitting over here to my right. And the contract for the construction of the Maroon Creek Multi-Use Trail.
I move to approve the balance of the consent calendar, the ones you just listed.
Thank you.
I'll second that.
We have a motion, and a second, further discussion. I'm actually going to pull resolution number 32 for quick discussion.
Which one is that?
That is the contract for public art plan development.
I had a comment on that anyways.
Okay, well, I will withdraw my motion then. And we'll do your issue first, because I said for all,
Oh, okay.
so.
Sarah Roy, Executive Director of the Red Brick Center for the Arts. Thank you, Mayor and council members.
Thank you. This afternoon, I sent Sarah a couple of questions, so I just wanted to give her an opportunity to answer them. As I stated before, for a $5,000 housing request, I'm a fan of vetting, and I just wanted a little bit more information. So the questions that I sent to her were things around the RFP process. Did they have other applicants? What did they submit? And then some other questions about the recommended proposal. So.
Do you want me to just
Sure.
go with your questions?
Yeah, sure, that'd be great.
Okay, perfect. Yep. We received a total of 5 proposals for this. We gathered a kind of group of internal staff members to participate in kind of going through the selection process. 2 of them came in about 2 to 3 times higher in terms of fee amount than the one that we did propose or recommending to select, I'd say. And then really ultimately it came down to, it's a two consultant team, I'd say. It's Kendall Peterson and Jill Stillwell, and they just came out heads and above everybody else, both in experience with public art, with community engagement. They are Colorado-based. They reflected in their proposal a great understanding of Aspen. Kendall even lived here for a year, so she has a special little place in her heart for Aspen. But their proposal definitely reflected understanding the arts and culture, how much it means to us, and what this plan can do. And then also their recommendations were just excellent. So that's why we are recommending this team.
And then my other question, I didn't see a timeline.
Yes, and there is a timeline. We are gonna, it's gonna start pretty immediately, kind of with a kind of discovery phase that they're calling it, where they're gonna kind of do some research, come in and have some initial conversations, look at our current public art collection that we have. So it will include going out and kind of the 20, I think the Parks Department has identified about 27 pieces of art currently in the collection. So going out and kind of doing a GPS mapping of those pieces, kind of doing a visual assessment and analysis of the current collection, making recommendations or thoughts on kind of their current placement. And then we move into the community development phase, which will kind of run from June until October. And then the last phase that starts kind of September will run into December, possibly into January, will be that creating of the plan. And what we really liked about this team was in that kind of analysis or creation of the plan, they had this kind of iterative process where they're going to come back to council, come back to the stakeholders, go back to the public with kind of their first initial draft to get feedback before they come back to you guys to present the final plan. So timeline, back to your original short question that I gave a really long-winded answer for, we're looking at end of the year to beginning of early next year.
Just so I'm making sure I'm commenting on the right one, this is the contract with the consultant for like 92.8 for the thing, right? Okay, just a few art things in there. I have comments, I guess, I don't know.
The only other question that I had, that I asked was, is a mapping of existing public art pieces part of the scope of work? And you're saying that, yes, it'll be GIS'd or something like that. I was just hoping that in the end, it would be something that's almost consumable, something that.
So
A guide,
I
if you
just want to manage expectations here because it is the definition of city-owned public art. There's
Yes.
public art in this community not owned, so there's murals on buildings. There is publicly accessible but on private land. That is not included in this scope.
And it would be kind of an inventory assessment of city-owned public art, which, again, the Parks Department's identified about 27 pieces. It would be kind of in a paper form. So if you're asking kind of like the next jump into like a map or like a digital app, that's something that we could definitely look down the road. That is not in the scope of work. But that will be that's the, this is the first step, I guess, to kind of compile it, again, to kind of do an analysis of it, to then decide if you want to go to that next step.
Sounds great. 12 months is longer than I was hoping this was going to be.
Yeah, way longer.
Well, it does include a really robust community engagement, and we realize that that's just really important, that we want to make sure that we're getting as many people participating in this, offering those opportunities, and education is also really important to this, that again, we're offering events or ways that people can learn about public art, so when they want to engage in this conversation, they're educated or can have input, I guess, that would be beneficial. So these take time, and I'm in the camp that I don't want to rush this. I want to do this right, because I want the end product to be something that is visionary, and then that is what we're asking them to do. We're asking them to create a public art plan. This isn't them asking to select art or curate art. We're asking them to create a plan that we can use moving forward. And so that takes visioning work, and that visioning work, I feel like kind of takes time, because again, I think we want to walk away with saying, this is that aspirational document that we're going to move forward with, creating art that's going to create community connection, community pride, tell our history, speak to where we want to go.
Yeah, and I agree with all of that. We had spoken about this a couple months ago, and you had told council that, yeah, $50,000 might get it done, but we actually could do better and do better. So you warned us, and you asked us, and you actually came in below where you were thinking that it might go. You also did not take the highest bids here, so I think you've done a great job of vetting this out, and I agree with you. I think where we're getting is something that's going to last for the foreseeable future.
And I will say, we are working on trying to create some, what they're calling artful engagements during this process.
Yeah. So we're even going to have a couple of art
hopefully something.
gatherings.
We're going to get into what that is, but something where we might be experiencing art, again, as part of it, so.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Other council members with comments? Ward?
Yeah, thank you, Sarah, for your work on this, and I do see that it's to be completed no later than March 2024, which I agree with Tori. Wish it was quicker than that, but the realization that there's multiple opportunities for public input on this is appreciated. And I just bring, I think, to the attention that this is one of the benefits of the Wheeler-Rhett vote, that there's more money available, and this is coming out of the 120 fund, which is funded out of Wheeler instead of out of general fund. Thank you.
Thanks, Ward.
Yeah, just sort of general comments. Don't take this as like direct criticism or anything. It's not the intent. I really support what this is about and the goal, and have for a long time. And I know you also warned us, and I said, yeah, bring it back. Process-wise, this just doesn't feel like the right way to go about this to me. I think we talk about getting people involved in the arts, and, we've had people who have wanted to do the work for a number of years, and now we're hiring consultants for almost $100K, and maybe people will go to the events. I hope I go to the events, but does that really bring people into the process? Does that enroll them in it? Or is that just something that's done for me that I don't have the same investment in? And that's just my concern about this, is it feels like a process where we're hiring help, and I understand why. We want it to be professional. We want it to be done to the best of its ability. I get all that, but I'm not sure that it cultivates the end result that we want, which is community involvement.
Well, I think that's what this community engagement is inviting folks into the conversation, that hopefully then they feel they own it at the end, versus us just saying, here's a plan, this is what we're doing. We want them to feel part of building it.
I get that, and I hope you're correct about that. And I guess it's just, I'm certainly going to support it. I want this to go forward and all that, but I just think, going forward, if we really want people to own it, people were coming to us saying, we want to own this, and we said, we'll just stay there and we'll hire some consultants. That's how I see it,
Rachel?
Yeah, I'm going to support this, and I see it just a little differently than you, and it's good that you have different points of view at the table, and often we end up supporting things that we don't entirely know if it's going to play out, or if I'd scripted it myself, it'd be a little different. And particularly, yeah, there's been some people who are like, let us take over and let us do it, let us decide public art, but I'm not so sure that wasn't a self-selected group that others would not feel particularly comfortable joining, and that there was some expressed, we want to do this with the arts, so this is the outcome, already a predetermined outcome, as opposed to what does the broader community think, and what do people think who are not in that self-selected group. And sometimes when you say, oh, I'll be the first one, I'll take the boat across the river, I'll be glad to, it's because they want something on the other side of that river for themselves and not necessarily for the whole community. So I think that this approach actually creates a little more equality and an equal playing field for everyone to get their ideas into the system.
Fair enough.
I appreciate that. John?
Yeah, I'm a huge supporter of public art, obviously, and I applaud your efforts towards this. I'll support this. I see Carbondale as having a very successful public art program, and I've wondered if you've reached out or if we can reach out to them to see what their successes and failures have been.
I have, and I have good relationships with Amy Kimberly, who is very involved in building that, and I've been likewise building relationships with, I was actually speaking to the Director of Public Arts for Vail today, Boulder. I'm mining all that I can, I will say, from all these predecessors right now before us, so
Awesome.
to learn, but I will definitely tap back into them, so yeah.
Cool. I think Loveland has a really successful public art program, too.
Yep.
Thanks.
Thanks, John.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
All right.
Yeah, a brief bit of, when you mentioned the public art that we know on public property, I can only think of the big rock elephant sculpture at the old powerhouse. And when the art museum was there, I asked them about it, and they're like, we wish we knew whose it was and how to get rid of it and decommission it, but we think it's got to be there forever now. And
Funny, Matt and I were just speaking about that.
yeah, I know.
Not knowing,
And so
like, I was
it's
like,
kind of good to start taking a little more ownership of some of these things and creating the history of who donated and what the artist was and how to deal with them going forward. So
Yeah,
thank
maybe
you
the
for taking
molar
control.
in Wagner Park, too.
Yeah, we'll have
No
to
elephant,
designate
for
that.
the record.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks a lot, Sarah. You know, Rachel, I just want to give you some more credit. Your input on this has been invaluable. It was a lot of your words from your experience about some of the encounters that you've had before with arts councils, valley-wide, up here, et cetera, that has really helped me kind of be supportive of the direction that we're going. So I just
Very
want to
good.
give you some credit.
Thank you, Tori.
All right. Are there any other items that members care to pull for discussion this evening? John?
I just briefly wanted to give a shout out to resolution number 28 about the agreement between the city of Aspen and RAFTA to complete the Rubey Park overhead electric charger project design. I think this is going to be really cool for the general public from around the world to see our electric buses getting charged.
Right, yeah. Very good.
Yeah,
So-
just FYI, that's been about 2 years in the making at RAFTA.
Sure.
So I will restate the motion to approve the consent calendar as amended with the other item pulled earlier.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on the consent calendar? Seeing none, could we have a roll call vote, please?
Counselor Doyle,
Yes.
Counselor Howenstein,
Just to clarify that this is excluding.
Yeah, it is.
Okay, yes,
Counselor Mazzaro,
Yes. We left you
Counselor
off the stage
Richards,
Yes,
Mayor Tory.
And I'm a yes.
thank you.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
That'll bring us down to our public hearings this evening, and we are going to actually take ordinance number 6 first, because we have a couple members that will be recusing for the final item.
Thank you to all the staff who
Yep,
had to
thank
wait
you,
through
guys.
all that.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thanks again, Sarah.
Good evening, council.
Power to make it to the end of the meeting.
Hi.
Hey, good evening. My name is Jimena Baldino. I'm the Waste Diversion and Recycling Specialist.
And I'm Tessa Schreiner, the Sustainability Manager.
And tonight we are going to be talking about the amendments that we are proposing to Chapter 13.24, Waste Reduction. The purpose of today's board session is the second reading of Ordinance Number 6, Chapter 13.24, Waste Reduction, amending this chapter to adopt the House Bill Number 21-1162, Plastics Pollution Reduction Act, also referred as PPRA. The agenda for today is a background on Cities Code, Chapter 13.24, Waste Reduction, then an overview of the House Bill Number 21-1162, PPRA, and finally, the amendments that we are proposing to Chapter 13.24.
Great. To share a little background, in 2011, Council passed Chapter 13.24 entitled Waste Reduction. This prohibited plastic carryout bags at the 2 grocers in town, Clark's and City Market, and established a 20-cent fee per disposable bag at the grocers. And this fee goes into the Waste Reduction Fund, which is then spent for community benefit on a variety of initiatives. 2 examples of those are on your screen. The first is a reusable bag giveaway for residents and visitors that has been in place for several years. The most recent iteration of these are actually upcycled bags from banners that have hung around town for events and other items. And the second event, or the second thing that you see on the screen, is the electronic waste annual event. It's a collection event for, again, residents to drop off electronic waste. And annually, we collect about a tractor trailer full of e-waste at these events. So to give a little background on the House Bill 211162, Plastics Pollution Reduction Act, this act has three key parts. The first is starting in January 1st of this year. Large retailers and grocers will begin charging a fee of 10 cents per paper and plastic bag. Starting in January 1st of 2024, plastic bags are banned from large retailers and grocery stores, and same with polystyrene cups and containers banned. That also includes restaurants. And then finally, starting July 1st of 2024, municipalities will be able to enact more stringent laws to manage or restrict plastics, which municipalities are currently banned from doing in Colorado until that date.
Going into more detail of the bag fee that Tessa was talking about, the House bill mandates a 10-cent fee per bag used by a customer in Colorado. From that 10 cents, 40%, so 4 cents per bag, are going to stay with the business, and the other 60%, or 6 cents per bag, are going to have to be remitted to the city. What we are proposing tonight is to increase that 10 cents per bag to 20 cents per bag to match the ordinance that we have in place since 2011. We are suggesting council to amend Chapter 13.24, Waste Reduction, to adopt the PPRA into the city's code. And if adopted, starting on May 1st of this year, 80 additional